Hello, friends. My name is Eric Cloward, and welcome to the Stoic Coffee Break. The Stoic Coffee Break is a weekly podcast where I take aspects of Stoicism and do my best to break them down to their most important points. I share my thoughts on Stoic philosophy and share my experiences, both my successes and my failures, and hope that you can learn something from them, all within the space of a coffee break. So normally my episodes are just me talking about Stoic philosophy, but I like to do interviews occasionally with people that I find interesting and I think that can add value to your lives. And this week, I have my friend Sam Bennett on here. Sam Bennett is an author of multiple books, mostly dealing with productivity and dealing with creative blocks. And I will let Sam introduce herself and talk about her background, where she comes from, and what she's doing. And yes, I think it's going to be a far-ranging, interesting conversation. We'll probably hit up on some productivity things, passing creative blocks, and who knows what after that.
Hi, Eric.
Hey.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here.
So tell us a bit about yourself, and so that my audience gets to know you a little bit better.
Yeah. Hi, audience. Let's see. I grew up in Chicago. I was a theater kid. I was one of those kids who put on shows in the living room, in the backyard, and I went to theater camp, and I was that weirdo. And eventually I got a job at the Second City Theater, and I worked there for almost 10 years, which meant that I'm still friends with some of the great comedy minds of all time. But at the time we were just kids doing shows together. We were just all in our 20s working for, I don't know, $75 a show. And there's a picture from my first wedding, and it's me, in the big white dress. And then there's Stephen Colbert and Steve Carell and Amy Sedaris and Nia Vardalos and Ian Gomez and Jim Belushi and, all the people. And it was great. It was fun. It was hard. It was an incredible education. And I had one of those acting careers, in Chicago and then later in Los Angeles that went well enough that you didn't want to give up on it. I mean, I worked. I was paid to be on television, which is more than a lot of people can say, but it never paid me enough for me to make a living at it. So along the way, I just got really interested in this question of how do highly creative people make decisions? How do people with a lot of talents and skills figure out what to do? Once they figured out what to do, how do they figure out how to market it and sell it in a way that feels cool and ethical and right to them? When you could sort of, what should I do? Should I have a podcast like Eric? Should I host a regatta? Should I stand on the street corner with a sandwich board? Like, what do I do? And I was always pretty good about getting things done. That was never really a problem for me. And one of the quirks of my mind is that I face a question like that and I think, well, how would I figure that out? How would I figure out if I was anybody other than myself, how would I figure out what to do? So I started coming up with a lot of worksheets and exercises and little imagination games. And I started teaching a class called Get It Done in a church basement in Van Nuys, California, to like 11 people. Again, the same $75. Like, I don't, pardon me. But it was really fun. And eventually I wrote the book, Get It Done, From Procrastination to Creative Genius in 15 Minutes a Day, which, hair toss, got endorsed by Seth Godin, which I'm totally not over. Totally not over. And it just kind of grew into this whole line of work of helping people get unstuck and get their work out of their heads, out of the house, out into the world.
Nice. And so with that experience, what do you find are the most common things that people do that keeps them from doing that? And what are the most common, or I guess the most practical ways of getting past that? Because I know that's something I've struggled with a lot because I have so many interests of so many things I want to do. And I even took time off from this podcast because I was like, oh, I want to focus on music because podcasts were taking a lot of time. And then fell back into the podcast because I found I needed it. I joke around, I call it my public therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I took another break and I was going to do Unreal Engine and found out that I just, used this very expensive computer that I bought to play video games and wasn't doing anything with Unreal. So again, came back to the podcast because I was, working through some of these things. So with that said, sorry to mean to kind of jump in and spill my story, but yeah, what are the most common things that keep people from doing that, and how they can move past some of those things?
Yeah. Well, I think your story is actually not only interesting, but illustrative because a lot of so often the advice I give is follow the sparkly breadcrumbs. We don't really know where this is going. There isn't a right answer. There's just your answer. And the things that I see get people stopped, particularly smart people and sensitive people, is overthinking, right? So they get trapped inside their own heads. Perfectionism. I hear the word overwhelm a lot. I hear the word procrastination a lot. I hear the word um, procrastination, overwhelm, busy. I just let myself get so busy. And what I, yeah, so my first thought is always like, well, just try it. Like, try it, see where it goes. And as you say, like, oh, I still love music, but I find that day to day it doesn't give me the same reward that doing this podcast does. So great, I can move music a little bit further down the list of important things to do. Or I can be something I make sure that I do just for me and my heart. I don't need to share it with the world. Um, and just because it's occurring to me, this is an important distinction that I think doesn't get made often enough, is the difference between hobby and art.
Yes.
Um, Hobby is a little word. It's a word that sounds very small and dismissive. Oh, it's just a hobby. But I think hobbies are crucial. I think they're critical. I think they're part of our soul's development. I think they're part of the things that bring us joy and satisfaction on this earth. And uh, anything that you love to do, but you would never want to have to do, and you don't ever really want to monetize it, that it is important that those stay a hobby. When I was back at the age when all my friends were having kids, I used to make cashmere sock monkeys for all the children, for the babies. They were adorable. And everybody's like, oh my God, you make cashmere sock monkeys. You should totally sell these. This would make a great business. But I'm like, nope. Mm-mm. These cashmere sock monkeys are a gift of love from my heart to this baby. And I never want it to be anything more than that.
Mm.
On the other hand, there's another word that I'm calling art, which is a very big word and probably too big of a word because it sounds sort of intimidating. But what I mean is, whatever the thing is, and it may or may not be an artistic thing, but it's the thing you have a gift for, that you must share with the world.
Yeah.
You
Mm.
know it's something, it's bigger than you. It has a drive to it. It has an energy to be shared. And it hurts me when people either put the pressure of public opinion on their hobby, which should just be for them and the people who love them,
Yeah.
or take something that is truly their heart's mission and say, oh, it's just a hobby. Oh, that doesn't matter. So I think that's an important distinction of like, keep trying things because we don't know. We don't always know ahead of time, what's going to be which. And then really pay attention to the feedback you get. Like, follow the sparkly breadcrumbs and really notice how you feel as you do it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that definitely makes sense for me, because the times that I took off from working on the podcast and tried other things, um, I've found that there were just moments where I would learn this life lesson, because I've been studying Stoicism for a while, and it was just like, oh, this is so good, and I would sit down and write an episode and just be like, I can't sit on this. This is
Yeah.
something I need to share.
Yes.
And if this is something I'm struggling with, I'm pretty sure that somebody else is struggling with it out there.
That's right.
And my podcast was my way to work through a lot of that shit. I would say probably about 80% of my podcasts are just strictly personal things that I was dealing with. And I was like, okay, how do I do this? And sitting down and writing an episode was my way of processing that and working through those things. Whereas some others, I would see an interesting video or podcast episode, or read an interesting article or book, and I would talk about that because there was some really good lesson that I thought somebody should share. But yeah, I think that, and so in a way, my podcast has been a hobby, but it's kind of evolved into something more
Right.
because it's something I found I was good at, and because the response was really, pretty tremendous about it, and has been, where some of the music I put out. hasn't really gone anywhere. But I haven't put out nearly as much music as I have podcast episodes. So it's
So it's a little unfair to judge one by the other.
exactly.
I once wrote an entire training around uh, Shawshank, around the movie Shawshank, and
Hmm.
the principles of Stoicism as they appear in Shawshank
Yeah.
Redemption. It's pretty
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. I think Shawshank is a very stoic movie. It's
Yeah,
that it's that acceptance of what is and changing what you can.
right.
And you just have to deal with things. And yeah, I still one of my favorite scenes in there is, I think for a lot of people, it's that one where he locks the office door and he plays that opera.
Yes.
And and the whole prison is just like, and um then they throw him in the hole, meaning solitary confinement, for 2 weeks, and he comes back out, and they're like, "Man, that must have been tough." 2 weeks in the hole, and he's just like, "It was easy." It's like, why? It's like because they can't get in here.
right.
They can't control this. They might put me in that cell, but they can't control this.
Right.
And I think Morgan's Freeman character goes, "I knew what he was talking about, and that was hope."
Yeah.
But it was that whole thing of like, you can throw me in the hole, doesn't matter. You can imprison my body, but you can't imprison my soul.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's something, again, you're asking what I see a lot of, I'm sure you do too, is a lot of people spending a lot of time fretting and complaining about all the stuff that is outside of their sphere of influence, all the stuff that is outside of their immediate control, and not spending nearly enough time, if any time at all, on the stuff that actually is within their sphere of control. It always feels like, oh, it's them, it's the government, it's the economy, it's that boss, it's that person, it's that woman at the end of the table, it's my sister-in-law, it's them. If they weren't
Yeah.
here, if they weren't behaving the way they were, if these circumstances were different, then I would be fine. And
Mm,
that is a lie. That
yeah.
is a terrible, insidious lie.
Yeah. I think that it's that whole thing of, was it Steve Martin said, be so good they can't ignore you. Don't complain that your audience doesn't like what you're getting out there. Make something your audience likes. Or be okay with the fact that you wrote something and not that many people are that interested in it. You can't control what your audience likes.
And how many fans do you really need, right? I mean, there's the famous article, 1,000 True Fans. I mean, how successful do you need this to be?
Yeah.
Uh, and I certainly working, having been a performer my whole life and working with them, but I see it with entrepreneurs too. It's like, well, but like I can't get ahead till till I get an agent or a manager, but I can't get an agent manager until I get ahead. I can't, how do I stop being a nobody and start being a somebody? It's like stop trying to win them over. They're not your parents. Like winning them over didn't work with your parents, and it's not going to work with agents and managers either.
Very true.
Right? Same thing with job seekers. Like, well, how do I get the hiring people to notice me? Go off on do your own thing, loud enough and big enough and brilliant enough that they come to you, because
Yeah.
everybody wants to be a part of something that's already working,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah. I mean,
really annoying.
yeah.
And simple facts.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, I found for me, for example, even though I haven't made much money off this podcast, the business connections I'm making as I'm switching over into leadership coaching and training, um, because of the podcast. And so one of the contacts I'm working with, which I'm pretty sure will come through, I asked the gal, she's incredibly helpful, wants me to come speak at her company, doing all of these things. And I was like, I asked her, I said, so why are you doing this for me? Because you were doing a lot. Like, this is what I would pay an agent or a marketer or, somebody in PR to do for me, to try and set all this up, to go speak at your company and get paid for it, and to announce my coaching program and do all of these things. And she's like, well, there's two reasons. One, this is what my job is I help employees within my company. And so, and two, well, actually three things. So two, you're a tool to help me do that. What you have helps these people. So you are a tool. This is to help them. Number three is you've paid it forward so far. You've got over 300 episodes. You've been paying it out into the world. And now it's time for that stuff to come back. Your consistency, your dedication to continually doing this has helped me through some of the darkest times. And we had dinner the other night, and she was explaining, some things in her life, and there's some crazy shit. It's just like, what?
Yeah.
She's like, yeah. And the way that I got through it was because when I was feeling stressed out, I would listen to your podcast. It would help me calm my brain a bit, and I was able to actually function where
Yeah.
like emotionally I was a wreck and just, it's just like, I just want to quit this whole thing and, you know, get out of this country, but I got kids and I can't do that. And, it's like I'm freaking out. And, I listen to your podcast and go, oh, okay, that's why I'm freaking out. Thanks.
Hmm.
Okay. And I'm just like, wow, that's amazing to hear.
It's
So
so amazing. And there's so many important things in what you're saying. One is for all of you who are sitting on something that you know you want to do, that you know would make a difference to yourself, to the world, to whomever, but it's not quite perfect. You're not quite sure what it's going to be. You're not quite sure what the methodology is. Maybe it should be this, maybe it should be that. Knock it off. Quit getting ready to get ready and just start getting it out into the world. And,
yeah,
my latest book is called The 15-Minute Method. And I'm like, spend 15 minutes a day on something that matters to you. P.S. That's the entire 15-minute method. That's the whole idea. Ta-da! How I turn that into 45,000 words, I'll never know. but, um, but so what I want to say is, well, it's not perfect. It's not perfect. I don't want to get it out there, but it's not perfect. Do you love the things you love because because they're perfect?
yeah,
Do you love the people you love because they're perfect? The movies you love, the music you love because it's perfect music? No. You love it because it means something to you,
yeah,
right? So your work is sitting there tapping you on the shoulder. This idea, whatever that idea is for you out there, it's tapping on the shoulder, and it has been for some time. It probably has to do with your zone of creative genius. And it probably has something to do with like why you're here or where you're going. So quit getting in your own way.
yeah,
You don't know what person you're going to touch, whom you will be changing, what will change for you. And the key, I think, is to, when I say zone of creative genius, the things we love about our zone of creative genius is because we love the action of doing it, even when there's no result or no tangible result. We love the person we become as we are doing it.
yeah,
So it's
yeah,
not just that you did 300 episodes, it's the person you became as you did 300 episodes that also
yeah,
puts you in a position where you are now hireable by this person. You weren't
yeah,
hireable by her 300 episodes ago. She may have liked what you were up to. She may have thought you were interesting, but she wasn't going to, put you in front of her boss and everybody in the entire department. But now you walk the
yeah.
path to here.
Exactly. And the funny thing for me was that, I tell this story often is that I started the podcast not because I wanted to make a podcast about Stoic philosophy. I started the podcast because I wanted to practice making a podcast.
Uh-huh.
And because Stoicism was what I was studying at that time, I was like, okay, I'll make a practice podcast so I understand how it works about Stoic philosophy, because that's just what I think about every day as I'm writing in the Stoic journal that I bought. And um, it was just something to talk about and do this practice. And if you listen to my first 50 episodes, some of them are really crappy. I mean, they are
Yeah.
not good. I did them on my iPhone with my earbuds in and just recorded it. Sometimes while I was just going on a walk, I'd just be like, okay, that's what I'm going to talk about today. And then sometimes they had this whole thing where you could put music behind it. And so I tried that, and people complain about that. And I'm like, yeah, it is harder to hear my voice when I have this music playing. So I'll cut that out. Um, try different themes. The theme song that I've been using for the last probably 4 years was one that I wrote, actually.
Mm-hmm.
It's a piece of music that I wrote, and I love it. To me, it's just one of the coolest things that I've ever written. So I was like, oh, I can just take this little snippet of it and and play that. And I love that. And so for me, that was something that was really, it became a way for me to kind of test these things out because I wasn't afraid to try it, because it was like, okay, well, it's just a practice podcast anyway. And then suddenly when I had, 10,000 downloads, I was like, oh, people are actually listening to what I have to say. And they were emailing me and stuff like that. So it took on a life of its own, which was really fascinating for me.
I think you've sort of plucked a little string that I want to circle back to, which is I think sometimes the thing that stops people from taking action on the stuff that they really want to do is a fair bit of fear and anxiety, which is, of course, you're afraid. Who wouldn't be? My goodness, it's
Yeah.
terrible. Putting work out into the world is terrible. Putting
Yes.
yourself out into the world is incredibly. It's just nail biting. Um, and I think sometimes people look at you or me or something like, well, it must have been easier for Eric, because he has all these skills. He has this voice, he has this music, he could do this thing. Must have been easier for Sam. She'd already written two books. So this third, but maybe a third book isn't that big of a deal. Must have been easier for so and so. Must have been easier because they're so beautiful, because they come from a wealthy family, because they don't seem to have any problem. I don't know. But I'm here to tell you, it's hard for everybody.
Yeah.
And we're afraid too. We may not be afraid of exactly the same things you are afraid of, but we are definitely afraid. And the mountain is just as steep for everyone to climb. So stop making that excuse for yourself of like, well, at some point it's going to be easier, or I'm going to have more confidence. No, confidence is the thing you get after.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I wish there was some way I could like, beam this information into people's heads like, well, I'm not sure if I can do it. Right. Of course. How could you be sure if you could do it if you have not yet done it? You
Yeah.
know? But if you're standing on the top of the high dive thinking, well, I wish I had the confidence to jump off, it's like, no, you have to jump. And then afterwards, you come up out of the water going, woo, I did it. I am going to do it again because now I have confidence. Right. And we all have to, it's just as miserable as we think it's going to be, that moment at the top of the high dive, that moment before you hit send, that moment before you say hi to that person, the moment before you start writing that book. But if you take it in baby steps, that can help. If you do it with a group, that can help. A little positive peer pressure, people going, yay, jump off the high dive, yay. And again, if you do it in that zone of creative genius, if you do it in that, and first of all, hat tip to Gay and Katie Hendricks and their amazing work on zones of genius. But if you are doing it in the sphere of things that you love to do anyway, right? We all have these things that like, we just love that. Like, it's so mysterious. Like maybe nobody else in your family is into it. None of your friends are into it, but you've always been a little fascinated. You're watching all the documentaries about it. People are like, wait, you're driving to where and paying how much to go to an exhibition of what? And you're like, yeah, no, I can't wait. And they're like, okay. Okay, friend, have fun. Like that is your zone of creative genius. It's the thing that, and you probably don't notice it because it's come so naturally to you that it just sort of seems sort of obvious, or like, well, everybody is good at this, or everybody would be interested in this. No, no, they're not. And so to take those, I also think of it as like the thing that if somebody came to you at 3 a.m. and woke you up and was like, hey, we're gonna go do this thing. You wanna come do the thing? And you'd be like, oh yeah, where's my shoes? Okay, let's go. I'm up. Like, what is that thing? And whatever that thing is, do more of that thing, even for just 15 minutes a day.
Yeah. I think that the interesting thing for me is that I felt when there was a point in my podcast where I got popular enough that I began to feel an even stronger sense of imposter syndrome. Like at the beginning, I knew I was kind of an idiot, and I was just like, "Hey, this is what I learned about Stoic philosophy today." And so, yeah, and so it was like, okay, but then once I reached a certain level of popularity, I had 100,000, 200,000 downloads or something like that, and I was like, "Oh man, wow, I have a real audience," and I was like, "Oh," and sometimes there was a lot of anxiety with episodes, which is why I began writing them down
Mm,
rather than just off the cuff, because I wanted to get things right. And that part of that was the perfectionism that I wanted to have with it. It's like, oh, well, if people are depending on me, I want to make sure it's good. But second was also that I found in writing those episodes that I dug into it a lot deeper. And so I
mm,
could, rather than just going, okay, here's what understanding what you can control, what you can't control. by writing an essay about that, basically, I found I could find the deeper nuggets in that, and I could also have twists in there. Sometimes I would, I'd be like, there was one I wrote. It was called the Unpursuit of Happiness,
Mm,
and it was like, stop trying to chase being happy. Happiness is a byproduct of being satisfied with what you do and who you are.
hmm
Happiness is a result. It's not a destination. You don't go, today I'm going to be happy. You can decide that you want to be in a better mood and take some steps to do that, but you can't just say, happy, I'm going to do this thing and I will be happy. You do that thing and you might be happy, because there's plenty of times when you get that thing that you wanted and you thought you were going to be so happy when you got that, and you're not. And you're like, wait, I worked so hard for this thing. But that's, in Stoicism, we realize that's where we so focus so much on the outcome. Like, oh, I'm going to put this episode out. It's going to get, you know, 50,000 downloads. And then it only gets, 15 on the first week. But over time, it finally hits 50,000. But that's okay. But it's like that. I never put out my episodes and think, yeah, this is going to be one I'm going to hit 1 million on this or anything like that. I just put it out and then, like, months later, go back and look at the statistics and go, oh, that's interesting.
hmm
And yeah, so I find that, like you said, you just have to get out there and do it. And even when you get successful, you still have that imposter syndrome, which I did for a long time. Now, not so much, but that's because I think some of it was my own insecurities about things, and I really, using Stoicism, worked really hard through that.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Well, just again, a number of sort of threads I want to pull on. One is it takes a great deal of stamina to remain patient with yourself while you develop the skill sets up to your own taste level, right? Ira
Yeah.
Glass is a wonderful little film about
Yes,
this.
absolutely.
We have something we have a passion for, and we immediately realize that we're terrible at it.
Yeah, our taste is good,
Our
but
taste is good,
our
but our ability is
creativity,
terrible.
exactly.
And it's really hard to, that's, when I talk about working in the salt mines of comedy, I spent a long time around the best people in the world, figuring it out and figuring it out and failing and failing and failing and going to class and going to rehearsal and going to class and going to rehearsal and doing a show and having it not go well and doing a show and having it not go well, and having a show and having it go okay. And then, this is how we learn and grow, is through experience and staying patient with yourself and staying connected to your own vision, um, and really honoring that drive that you feel, honoring that thing inside you that's like, I don't know, I just really want to. I know I'm terrible at it, but I really feel like it. And since this is a podcast partly about leadership,
Yeah.
one of the things I strongly recommend for leaders of any stripe is to make sure you are in a position at least once a week at which you are an abject beginner. I want you in, like, not just beginner's mind, but like intimidated mind.
Yeah.
Like, everyone in this room is miles better than me mind. I used to lift weights and do CrossFit and stuff, and I loved it. Partly because it was really hard, and because I was
Mhm.
not that good at it. There were a few things, the lifting heavy things part I was pretty good at, but the rest of it I was terrible. But I
Yeah.
loved being so terrible. I loved it that every time I did it, I was working at the very limit of my ability. I loved it that it was hard. I loved it that other people around me were killing it. And I was like, what? How do you even? You amaze me. And, being so enchanted by the skills of others. And I just think it's so important for leaders to, like I said, to put yourself in a position where you are at the back of the line, pal, and to remember that this is how some of your employees feel. This is how some of your clients and customers feel. And to take all that discomfort and that psychological distress. And I tell a story in 15-minute method about being at a terrible workout, and I'm like, one of those, you're red faced and spitting and crying, just awful. And finally the trainer came up to me and she goes, "Does it hurt or is it just hard?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, it's just hard." And she goes, good, and walks away. And I thought that's such an important question because,
Yeah.
yeah, if something hurts, if your job is hurting you, if your marriage is hurting you, if your friendship is hurting you, if your whatever group you're involved in is hurting you, that's a sign that something's wrong.
Yeah.
You need to hit the pause button and take a look at what is causing you pain. But if it's just hard, welcome to it, sister.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of what you were saying, kind of to nail that. It's that idea of if you're the smartest person in the room, you need to change rooms.
Find a better room. That's right.
Exactly. And
Only
I
play
know that's
tennis with better tennis players.
exactly. Yeah. I remember, I know I've talked a lot about myself on this, mostly because I do a creative pursuit and it's what I work on every week, almost every day. But I remember when I first started wrestling, my best friend Bobby had been wrestling for 4 years, and he was one of the best wrestlers in the state. He was absolutely amazing, and I was in the beginners class for a while, but then I had something that conflicted with that, and so I would go to the advanced class after, this was after school, and since he was in that, I'd wrestle with him because he was my best friend, and he would kick my ass all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
He was amazing. And so for like every 2 or 3 points I would make, he'd 15, bam. He was so good. And then something happened and I had to switch it up and I went to the beginners class a couple of weeks later. And some of these other wrestlers who had been beating me when I first started, I was just creaming them. They're like, how did you get so good? And I'm like, I'm not that good. Because look at Bobby. They're like, no, but you. And I was like, oh, it's because I had to work so hard just to get 2 or 3 points.
Right.
Where when I was wrestling the other kids who were about my skill level, it was fairly even, and so it was pretty easy, or I was generally a little bit better. And now I eclipsed them
Yeah.
because I've been getting my ass whooped so hard by Bobby for
Because you
weeks
increased
on
the
end.
resistance. Because you increased the resistance. And I think for some of you people out there, I was just talking to a client the other day who I think was having this problem. She was having this sort of like meh, everything was kind of meh. And I'm like, well, what would be exciting for you? What would delight you? What would entrance you? What would meh, meh, meh. I was like, all right, let's just 100x what we're talking about here. Because clearly this is all just boring the ass off you. And there's no reason to
Yeah.
spend, you're the only the only real tender of your life, which is time, on something that's not going to thrill you, like truly
Mhm.
thrill you. Um, the other thing I will say about this, and this has occurred to me earlier when we were talking, so I have a little rule in my head that if I think it 3 times, I have to say it. So I thought this 3 times, so now I'm going to say it. I, like so many people, have lived with depression and anxiety my whole life. I had it when I was a child, and there wasn't such a thing as childhood depression when I was a kid.
Mhm.
Just weird, just weird. I was a weird kid and sad, and his name often seems sad. Yes, I was sad. Um, and one of the ways, and I have what they call atypical depression, which is, I don't know why they call it atypical because it's very typical. It's very common. But it
Mhm.
is not the like, oh, I'm crying and I can't get out of bed kind of depression. I'm really high functioning. Like I can go out in the world and do things and have everybody think I'm fine. It's more that sort of inside a glass box. Like everybody thinks I'm great and I can't really feel it.
Yeah.
Um, and one of the ways it shows up is in a thing called anhedonia, which is the inability to take pleasure in things. Right? We
Mhm.
know the word hedonism, which is taking too much pleasure in things, and
Yeah.
hedonia is no pleasure
The
in
opposite.
things.
Yeah.
And so what that means is often I'm having the experience of being here going like, oh my gosh, I'm getting here to sit and talk with my friend Eric. This is so fun. I can perceive that this is fun. I don't really have the sensation of fun, but I understand that it is fun.
Mhm.
Now, I realize this must sound incredibly grim, and it's not. But I want to give a little relief. Sometimes when I say this, people are like, oh my God, I thought I was just like incredibly cynical. Like, no, you're not. I mean, you might be cynical, but you might also just have a lower reaction to that kind of thing. So we start to look again, what are more interesting words, right? What's more interesting than overwhelmed, busy, perfectionist? What's more interesting than fun or happy? Like, oh, I can feel satisfied. I can feel warm. I can feel
Hmm.
safe. I can feel turned on sometimes, depending on what's going on. Like what are the other words that signal some kind of reward to you?
So you think that, so basically, rather than looking for an overall joy, overall happiness, it's more of a fine-toothed or more of a laser-pointed, delineation of what it is you're doing and finding satisfaction with that.
Absolutely. And very in the moment, like, wow, this buttered toast is like so good. you
Mm.
know, Reading this book in the sunshine is so delicious. You know, Having this cat curled up on me purring is so lovely, so flattering, like
Mm.
I think we sometimes think that the big things are going to throw big switches, but it's really life is made up of little things, of little moments. It's another thing I talk about in the book. Actually, I talk about a thing called micro blessings,
Hmm.
which is mostly my antidote to gratitude lists because I'm in favor of gratitude. I'm in favor of an attitude of gratitude. I'm in favor of gratitude journals. I love all of it. And I find that those lists sometimes get kind of generic pretty quick. I'm
Yeah.
grateful for my family. I'm grateful for my health. I'm grateful. Of course you are. Of course you are. But are you feeling that? Does that really move you? Does that wake you up in the morning? Does that get you spending 15 minutes a day on something that matters to you? Whereas I can go, oh, the warmth of the tea coming through the mug to this hand. And I have an old injury on this hand, so it feels especially good.
Mm.
Mm.
So would you say that it's kind of like a mindfulness and being present?
Yeah. Yeah. Being present and being even a little inquisitive. Like, what is it about this that I'm enjoying so much?
Hmm.
Why do I have to stop and look every time I see the moon? Why do I, what is it about the sound of the waves or you know, watching the kitten videos or whatever it is that you love to do? Like to not just go like, oh, I like this, but like, what is it about it that is enriching and fulfilling to me? And can I find more of that?
And so with this exercise, you found that it was a way to kind of counteract that natural kind of sadness or depression by
Yeah, finding
finding
those
that
little,
gratitude, finding those moments of mindfulness, and saying, okay, while I don't feel this overall great, you know, happiness at this certain level, I can I can grab my own bits of happiness and appreciate them by focusing on these small things.
yeah. And I think, yeah, it's just noticing your life as it's happening and noticing the pleasures of life as they are happening. Uh, and I think that's all we have. I mean, when we look back on our lives and, think, oh, what were the greatest moments of your life so far? I mean, some of them might have been more typical top of the world moments, but most of them for me are very small moments, are very
Mhm.
intimate, fleeting moments.
Yeah, I like to follow Arthur Brooks. I think that some of what he teaches is pretty interesting. He's a professor of happiness, I guess you would call it, and he studies happiness at Harvard.
Mhm.
He writes for the Atlantic. I've seen different interviews with him, like Tim Ferriss' Diary of a CEO. And over the years, as they've researched this, they find that your level of satisfaction in life, your level of happiness in life, that at least 50% is just genetics. That
Mhm.
there's just going to be a natural component. And um, for me, I find that mine is probably about average, maybe a little less so. But I know that much of that comes from my background and the childhood I grew up with. And there's a lot of unconscious stuff that I'm sure I'm still working through as I go on this path of stoicism. But like I have a friend here in Amsterdam who was originally from Russia and he grew up very poor. They actually had to have a farm in the back of their yard if they wanted to make sure they had enough food. I mean, that's how
Ooh.
poor they were. His mom worked in a factory. His dad left when he was young, and he said, and that was a good thing.
Yeah.
glad my dad wasn't there. But he's like, but I always felt loved, even though my mom was very she was cold in a way, but she was very matter of fact and very practical about life. And she wasn't super warm, but I knew that she loved me. So that was fine. But he just genuinely is just one of these naturally happy people. Like he just
Yeah.
has this, yeah, it's like he almost has a smile on his face all the time, just kind of naturally, like his natural facial expression. They have resting bitch face. He's like kind of the opposite of that, like
Resting
resting
happy
smiley
face.
face. Yeah, he's just like, and I just really enjoy being around him because of that. It's like I kind of suck up that energy of like, yay.
Absolutely.
And,
I partner with a dear friend of mine, Amy Ehlers, who's also happens to be one of the world's great women's leadership coaches. And we do these international retreats for women. We've went to Belize 2 years in a row. We went to Crete. We're going to Majorca this year. It's incredible. And part of the reason I love working with her is not just because she's great at what she does, but because she is a natural born celebrator. She is a
mhm.
natural born enthusiast. She is, I tease her that she's a 1,000 watt bulb in a 100 watt world. She can't help it. And if there's music on, she's dancing. And if there's a compliment to give, she's giving it. And if there's something to appreciate, she's appreciating it. And it really helps, first of all, just improve the quality of the retreats because she's the one who
Sure.
remembers to put music on during the breaks. She's the one who remembers to, that we need a little dancing on the tables time in addition to all the work. But also because it just keeps me so much more grounded and present in the joy that is available to me.
Yeah, and that's interesting. I find that since I'm working for myself and I do so much stuff, here in my apartment and all these things, that I have to make sure that I go out at least a couple of times a week and just hang out
Yeah.
with people because as soon as
Yeah.
I do that, I feel my whole mood just lift because I am that extrovert and my
But also,
I
we're
think
tribal animals. I mean, we're
yeah,
designed to be this way. We're designed to live in a group. I think it's, most mammals as big as we are live in small family units with lots and lots of space in between, right? Not us.
yeah,
We're like, let's live in apartment buildings. Let's live in a city. Let's live all together. Let's get even closer together. Let's cram together on the train. Let's be right next to each other. And, it's part of our software. I mean, it's how we were designed to be this way. When people are like, "Oh, I'm such a people pleaser," I'm like, "Yeah, on purpose, because the good opinion of other people is how you stay alive."
yeah,
Right? We cannot survive alone. Our animal brain knows it. Our practical brain knows it. We need other people. Everything comes to us through other people. God comes to us through other people. Money comes to us through other people. Love and success comes to us through other people. Everything comes through other people.
yeah,
So, and our connections to other people is everything. It's everything. The quality of relationships is the quality of your life. End of story.
yeah,
So, to make sure that you are around people who get you, who celebrate you, who laugh at your jokes, who tell you you look cute even when you know you don't, like that is a high quality life.
yeah. And that's something that I'm building, and I have to remind myself to not get too focused on what my career goals because that takes up so much time, my energy, and some of that is that fear of running out of my savings. Like, oh, I have to get this going. And then I remind myself, I'm like, I can do this for a few years. I don't want to dip that far into it, but you'll be okay. And I just have to breathe. You can do this and go out
Right.
and hang out with people and do those kind of things.
And I mean, again, people say, oh, Sam, does a 15-minute a day thing really work? And I'm like, yes, or I wouldn't have written a book about it. But I'm not trying to trick you. Yes, the 15-minute a day thing works, and partly because it continues to focus your attention on the things that you love and that light you up, but also because it gives you something to talk about with other people.
Yeah.
Uh, and then when you're talking about somebody else, it's amazing how often they go, "Oh, well, my sister's a literary agent. Did you want me to?" Or, "Oh, my brother raises Bernese mountain dogs. Did you want me to?" Or whatever. Like I said, the
Yeah.
more you're in it, the more you're doing it, and this is my plan for world domination. Are you ready? Okay,
Yes.
here it is. So I've never had a job in corporate America. I've been a whitewater river guide. I've delivered flowers. I was a bartender and a barista. I've done everything. Uh, Children's party clown, all of it. Mime, but okay.
Uh,
Um,
I did that I did that as well. Children's party, did
Dude,
mime.
high
Yeah,
five.
I went to state 3 times in pantomime in high school and took superior each time.
Well done, you.
Yes,
Huh,
so imagine
fun.
me doing the whole, yeah,
Right, inside a glass box, right? See, there we
oh
go.
yeah, I
Yeah.
was really good at that. So sorry to interrupt, but we
No, and
had one
I
that was we had
I
one routine that I did that my first year, I was like, oh, I'm going to do her humorous interpretation where basically it's, you're almost doing like a stand-up comedy thing, or you do a scene, it's a solo scene. And I was like, yeah, this is what I'm going to do. And my drama teacher, Leslie, she was like, no, you're not. I'm like, I'm not. It's what I did last year, and I'm really good at this. And I just moved up to the school. And she was like, no, you're going to do pantomime. And I'm like, I've never done pantomime. She's like, you are a natural. And I was like, are you sure? And so a former student came and he taught me this one. It was called Psycho Bathroom. And it was one of the most brilliant mind pieces I've ever seen. And I tell people, I'm like, basically when I saw Mr. Bean, years
yeah.
later, I'm like, that's basically what Psycho Bathroom was kind of like. Like if Mr. Bean had a bathroom that started attacking him, there you go. And which is why I love Mr. Bean. I could watch that,
Yeah.
it just absolutely brilliant. That's one of the most watched shows in the world. Rowan
Well,
Atkinson he made more off Mr. Bean than he has off of anything else he's done in his career. And that was right at the beginning, and he had all the rights because it was just this cheap little show that he and some buddies put together.
Right. I
Yeah.
say build a bonfire, do your thing. Be so good they can't ignore
Anyway,
it.
a little bit of a tangent there, but sorry to
Well, a little
interrupt.
bit of a tangent, but I will also, this is another little thing I like to put in people's, soup so they think about it. To all you parents out there, if you have a child who is threatening a career in the performing arts or who is demonstrating an interest in the arts, um, don't panic. It's going to be fine. First of all, the chance that they will actually try to do it professionally is very slim.
Yeah.
Um, and everything they learn as they are studying art, and I think particularly the performing arts, just because that's my background, is going to serve them so incredibly well in the rest of their life, starting with the ability to stand up in front of a room and talk.
Yes,
It's
I
something
learned how
that,
to do that. Yep.
right, which is something so many people can't do. An understanding of body language, an understanding of timing, an understanding of energetic exchange, an understanding of emotions and the subtleties of human emotions, um, language and history and costume and attitude. And in the theater we call it ensemble. I think in corporate they call it teamwork. Uh,
Yeah.
I have a friend who ended up with a big job at Apple, and he always said, "Oh, I can always tell when somebody's got performance experience when they come in to
Yeah.
interview for a job." He's like, and he thinks it should be mandatory, like 2 years in the Peace Corps, like you have to spend 2 years in the performing arts, not necessarily on stage. You can be in, you can be part of the, but I totally agree.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, for example, obviously having been on stage and doing all of that makes it so it's much easier for me to speak on my podcast. That's
Right.
something that I definitely learned from that. But also because I started out, I was a musical theater kid. That's
Yeah.
what I loved. And so I took voice lessons, which is why my voice sounds the way that it does.
Right.
And yes, there's a lot of it is my natural instrument itself, but I learned how to use my voice to make it sound the way that I wanted to in my everyday speaking and everything. So my voice sounds the way that it does. And with my podcast, the two most highest compliments that I get, or most compliments I get most often, are thank you for your content. It has changed my life. Also, I love your voice. I could listen to you read the phone book. It's so soothing and so just like it just and some people like it's very calming. It's very, so when I'm stressed out, I can listen to one of your episodes, and because you're not this hyperactive podcast guest who's, here and there and there, it's just
Right.
nice and chill, and I can just relax and go, and you're teaching me something that's really helpful. I'm like, yay, yay. I'm
Yeah.
glad my
No,
tools are
I hear the
helpful.
exact same thing. I've done the audio for all three of my books, and I have a couple of limited edition podcasts that I've done. And I hear a lot of like, oh, your voice is so warm. It's like having margaritas with a friend. It's like I feel it. I'm like, yeah. And
Yeah,
again, yes, that's on purpose. And uh it's because I'm acting.
yeah,
It's not fake. I'm not faking it, but I
no,
can do it because I am an actor, right?
yeah,
Um, so this world domination. So, like I said, I've never had a job in corporate America. Um, And I worry because I read the statistic over and over again that says that 77% of employees are disengaged. And
Yeah.
that statistic has stayed pretty steady the last bunch of years. And it terrifies me because that's a lot of disengagement. I mean, can you imagine if 75% of your friends were disengaged?
Yeah. No, I think,
77% of your money disappeared? I mean, that's a lot, right? So it seems to me that that's a very expensive problem, right?
yeah,
If you're paying
that's,
three-quarters of the people to be there and not do anything or not really give a shit about what they're doing, that strikes me as a big problem. But I think I have an almost free and very practical solution.
oh, do tell. I need this for my teaching.
Yes. So I want to back up. I want everyone everywhere spending 15 minutes a day, every single day, on something that matters to them. That's the point of my book. That's the thing I say over and over again. 15 minutes a day, every single day, before you check your email on some, and whether that's writing or stretching or playing ukulele or tying flies or raising lizards or just sitting in the garden with the sun on your face. I don't care. What I notice is that we're spending all day getting everything done for everybody else. And the things that we know, like we were talking about, would really light us up inside, the things that are part of our zone of genius, the things that delight us, give us those little micro moments of pleasure, aren't even making it onto the list.
Yeah.
So that's my overall goal. But especially when it comes to corporate, I think it would be really neat if corporate said, you know what, everybody, between 4:15 and 4:30, that's your 15 minutes. Between
Hmm.
9:45 and 10, that's your 15 minutes. Don't schedule meetings. Don't check your email. Don't make your dentist appointment. This isn't about your to-do list. This is 15 minutes just for you as a person, as a human being, to noodle around whatever you want to noodle around with. I think that people would appreciate that of like, oh, wait, the people who run this organization have noticed that I am a person?
Hmm.
That's cool. So I think that alone would be cool. I think that, in fact, I have studies that back this up, that if you start a meeting and ask people not just to introduce themselves with their role, but to mention something else about themselves, about who they are as a person, you will have a better meeting. They will be more attentive. They will have better ideas. They will be faster problem solvers. They will be more innovative problem solvers. It just gets better all the way around. So if we're starting a meeting and I say, hi, I'm Sam from sales and marketing, and I spent my 15 minutes today, doing needlepoint for a baby gift for the baby who's about to graduate high school, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to get it done this week. Right? Who among us does not have that needlework project? And then, a little bit further down the conference table or in the Zoom room is, that person over there whom I've never really gotten along with, but they say, hi, I'm so and so from such and such. And, my grandmother was Swedish. And so I'm working on a recipe of hers to see if I can make it a little bit lighter, because frankly, it's kind of a heavy recipe. And I go, wait a minute, my grandmother was Swedish. And now she's a person to me,
Yeah.
or that person's doing cross stitch. Oh my gosh, we're needlework buddies, or that person goes water skiing, or that person loves gardening, or that, like, this is, now we know each other. And you know what that is? Engagement.
Yeah. Connection.
Now we are engaged. We are connected. We care about each other. We care about some of the same things. We have some shared values. We can laugh at each other's jokes. And people will do way more for other people than they will do for any kind of paycheck. I don't care who you are.
True. And by the way, my grandma is Swedish, so
See, all the best people are, frankly. I can still hear her voice. Hello, sweetheart. Hello, sweetheart. She was wonderful.
no, that's great. No, I think that's incredibly true. One of my coaching clients, he's a software development manager in Victoria, BC, and he was able to take paternity leave, and he's going back this next week. And he was a little bit nervous because he worked really hard to make sure that he could just offload everything to his whole team, because his boss was like, "You are on leave.
Mm.
And that's what it means. You are on leave. And he was like, okay. And so as he was, we were discussing, and he's like, so I've been able to free up a lot of my time to do a lot of the things that I wanted to do, but because I had my fingers in so many pies because it's a small company, now they're kind of running without me. So this is an interesting time. I said, let's capitalize on that.
That's
And
right.
one of the things that he talked about was he wanted to implement a 15% rule, which was 15% of your time can go to whatever you want.
Whatever you want.
And he was like, but I'm worried because we kind of tried doing that a few years ago, but we're small, and so we just get wrapped up in finishing code, and so we never got around to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, you have to do that. And he was like, I have to. And I said, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
One, it tells your employees it's okay to play.
Yeah.
It's an investment in your employees, telling them that you trust them. They're going to do something that it may not be productive for the company now, but they could be playing with some new technology and suddenly go, a couple of months down the line, go, oh, by the way, I was checking this thing out, and I think that will solve our problem over here. And you're like, all right, let's do this, which happened to me at a company that I worked for and I later became CTO of. I had seen this demonstration of this thing called Ruby on Rails. It was a new programming environment that
Sure.
came out. And he goes, we're going to build a blog in 10 minutes. And nobody had ever done anything like that before. And he does this demonstration, just does it right there in this front of this crowd. And everybody was like, what? And I looked at how they did their stuff where they got the database into the pulled out, and so the code could work with it. And it was called an ORM, which is an object relational model, but it's not that important. And so I went into work the next day, and I did a little bit of checking with some things, and I told my boss about this, showed him the video. They said, I think I can make that for our code. And I said, can I have a few days just to do that? And he was just like, sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because we would, for every time we need to make a database call, we would make a whole bunch of code just for that one call. So I
Mm.
said, let's make it so that we can just have this generic code. We call it, and then it just knows because the names of the columns are the exact same as the names that are being expected over here. So it just fills it and hands it off.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, let's do that. And man, we had this 10,000 line set of code, and we dropped it down to 300 lines. And it
Wow.
stayed at 300 lines for the next few years because once it was written, it was done. And I was like, thank you for letting me play. Thank you for letting me take the time to do this.
And we know that we have, how many great ideas do you have when you're out on your boat,
Yeah.
doing yoga, taking a walk, playing with the dog? Like, your mind needs a little air and space to put things together, there's nothing that will shut down creativity faster than say, be creative. Just play with it. Just have fun. Just think
Let's
of
have
anything.
creativity on demand.
Just go, just think of something amazing right now. Like there's
Mhm.
nothing. There's a few things that will make even hyper creative people shut down faster than that. So yes, to give people a little air and space to around in their mind, in their lives. And also, there's this beautiful spillover. People are like, really? Does 15 minutes a day really make a difference? It's shocking how much you can get done in 15 minutes.
Mhm.
And it's shocking how much you can get done in 15 minutes every day for a week, a month, a year, 6 years, 60 years, right? Um, I offer a thing called the Daily Practicum. It's a subscription thing. People buy it. And every day, every weekday at 12 noon Eastern time, uh, we everybody comes on, we say hello. I set the timer for 15 minutes. It goes off. 15 minutes later, people lift their heads up. And I swear, Eric, they have this like post-orgasmic glow. They're like, I did it. I did the thing. I sorted through this much of my closet. You know, I
Mhm.
I reached out to that. I called that person that I've been putting off calling for 6 weeks, and it was easy, and they were really glad to hear from me. I wrote a note to my friend who just lost her mom, and I didn't know what to say, but I did it, and like these little things, not just feel good in the moment to do them, not just have a what do you call that when a little bits of things add up to something bigger than themselves, exponential
Yeah.
results.
Hmm.
Um, but then there's this sort of spillover, like, and I don't know what to call it. It's like positive smugness or something. Like it's like when you work out in the morning or when you just first have a crush on somebody, and you're just sort of walking around all day, like, that's right. I'm amazing. How are you? Like, and that, we love that version of you, right? People are like,
Yeah.
oh, I couldn't take time for myself. That would be selfish. No. What is selfish is you walking around exhausted and stressed out and with no sense of humor, and the rest of us have to deal with you like that. That is selfish.
Yeah.
You show up creatively fulfilled or stimulated. You show up having crossed, moved forward on something that matters to you. You show up engaged with yourself. You're less reactive. You're a better listener. We love this version of you.
Yeah.
Please, that is the ultimate generosity, is for you to show up as that person. And at work, for your children, for your families, for your communities, for your faith community, whoever it is, all of these people will be so grateful if you take the 15 minutes to keep your flame lit.
Yeah. Yeah. I can agree with that. The taking care of yourself and so that you can be firing on all cylinders is probably the best gift that you can give. I know for me, for example, I think it was about a year and a half ago, I had a spell for about 3 months where I had just terrible insomnia,
Mm,
just because there was a lot of stress going on. And if I slept 5 hours, that was a long night. And it was like like I said, almost 3 months. Finally, I got some sleep meds that knocked me out. And I was sleeping like 8, 9 hours for like months afterwards. Like I would, and I recognized that lack of sleep was definitely detrimental to my last long-term relationship. Even though we had broken up by that point, we were still in this weird in between phase. We're still living in the same house. But I was a grumpy bastard because I was so tired. And I would try not to, but man, when you're that tired, you just feel on edge all the time. Just everything feels prickly, noises are too
mm.
much. You just don't have the capability to be even close to your best.
Well,
So I
and this
think
is,
that, yeah, I can agree
again, one
with
of the
that.
wonderful things about the 15 minutes, because I myself, as you know, have had long haul COVID for the last two and a
Yeah,
half
tell me
years.
more about that.
Yeah. So there's lots of days where, not only can I not get out of bed, but rolling over in bed seems ambitious. And one of the reasons the book is called the 15-minute method is because a lot of that book was written in 15-minute increments, because I
Mhm.
just couldn't do more than that. And I think it's easy to make the mistake of like, oh, well, I'm having this health crisis, or my beloved is having a health crisis, or I'm having this financial crisis, or this, like, I can't take time. I can't do this now, Sam. I have to be, take care of these other things. And I want to turn that on its head. I'm going to say, no, no, no. This is where it's even more important for you to spend 15 minutes a day on something that matters
Yeah.
to you. And again, even if it's just doodling or sitting out in the garden, whatever it is, because you can't take an already stressful situation and then remove your life force from it and expect for it to go better.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
yeah, basically it was kind of like, I think it was, I want to say it was in Viktor Frankl's book. I could be
Mm,
misremembering it, but he talked about the people who took time in the concentration camps to practice gratitude, to enjoy a sunset, to hug somebody, to
that's
do
right.
something like that. They had a much better chance of survival and were more mentally healthy because they took time to appreciate something beautiful in this absolutely horrible place.
Right. I worry too. I worry about cell phone usage, not in the same way that I think that other people do.
Hmm.
I worry about it because I notice it depriving us of these little moments of contact and communication with each other.
Yeah.
The conversations I have in line at the grocery store, the conversations I have with where I live, we've got full service gasoline stations. We don't have
Hmm.
we didn't have those where I lived before. So I'm like, really? You're just gonna fill up the tank for me? That's amazing. Thank you. But even those little conversations, the little exchanges that, we used to meet people sitting on an airplane. We used to meet people in the
Yeah.
dentist waiting area of the dentist office. We used to meet people shopping, you know. And now we kind of don't.
Yeah, yeah, I see that when I ride the metro into town. Everybody's on their phone.
Everybody's got their head
And-
down on their phone.
But I've met people randomly, and I do. I'm one of those people who talk to people, my neighbor on the airplane, and I've made friends that way.
Mhm.
Um, but and but I generally tend to, when I can, talk to somebody next to me or make a joke or something like that
Yeah.
and get to know them. And but I've noticed that I've kind of fallen into that habit of not nearly as much. I'm not usually on my phone. Sometimes I am because I was in the middle of reading an interesting article and I'm like, "Ooh, I got to get out of here and go." And so I will read it then.
Yeah.
But I usually like to just put my AirPods in and listen to music and watch the scenery as it goes by and appreciate that and do people watching. It's always
Yeah.
a lot of. But I do find that I've kind of adopted the culture around me of everybody's on their phone and not paying attention to anybody else.
Of
It's
course, because again, human emotion is contagious. We're going to do what we see everybody else doing. We
yeah,
can't help it. I mean, when the pandemic hit and everybody was, buying pallets of toilet paper, and everybody's like, "Why is everybody doing that?" Well, they're doing it because everybody's doing it.
yeah,
It's almost impossible for us not to do what everybody else is doing. And so, yeah, and sometimes people are like, "Well, I don't know what I would do." Great. So take 15 minutes and stare at a blank piece of paper. 15 minutes of enforced boredom never hurt a person.
yeah, yeah. I
And
found
when
that
was the last time you sat for 15 minutes without reaching for your phone? I'm gonna
I don't
guess it's
know.
been a minute.
I'd have to think about that. But
Yeah.
I do try at times to make myself bored and allow myself to be that, which is one of the reasons why it's like biking around here
Mm,
because I can't be reading something. I have to be, and
right.
so
Have to be
I
present, have
usually
to be
have
awake. Yeah.
yeah, I put AirPods in and then I just ride around and so I'm listening to music and my brain is thinking. And that's part of the reason why I enjoy cycling so much. Like I actually, I have a racing bike back in the States, which I'm going to get shipped over here. And I used to, hit 40, 50 miles on a ride easy. After my divorce back in 2005, that was my escape. That was my recovery. It was just out riding. And because the only thing I could focus on was riding. And so my mind would wander and it was processing all kinds of stuff. And it was just, it, I couldn't help it. It just had to wander because I was out there riding. And then sometimes I would focus in on very clearly where I was, and other times my brain would be wandering out there. But just being and doing something repetitive, and where the only things I could do was either focus on riding
Yeah.
or look around me, and that was it. So
I think it's one of the reasons why we all have such great ideas in the shower is because it's
yeah,
one of the only times when our hands are busy, so we're sort of, as you say, your hands and feet are busy, you're kind of, doing something by rote, without having to think about it. And your brain is a little quiet. I think also the water is nice, the sound of the
yeah,
water.
and it's
Um,
comfortable and warm. Yeah,
Comfortable more. I love it. Or cold. I also love a cold shower. I love all water in any circumstance, really. If there's a body of water, I'm getting in it. And even a shower feels great. And then, so we have, so we're doing the shower thing, and all of a sudden your brain's like, oh, by the way, here's the answer to the question you've been asking. Oh, by the
yeah,
way, here's what to get your sister for Christmas. Oh, by the way, here's the how to solve that problem in your writing issue. You're like, wow, this is so great. Right. Because you finally shut up long enough for your brain to be like, oh, knock, 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 here you go. Your brain is this
yeah,
amazing problem solving machine. You put in a nickel, you get out a gumball almost every time, but you gotta quiet down for a sec. You've got to give it a little bit of space. Um,
yeah. I think it was
other
Nietzsche
guy
said
keep,
there isn't a problem that can't be solved by a walk.
yeah, yeah. Or Isaac Dinesen, who says the cure for everything is salt water, sweat, tears, or the sea. She was Danish, which almost counts as Swedish. But yeah, and in terms of stoicism, the 15-minute thing, it really does help you get less precious with your own self, with your own work, with whatever it is that you're spending your 15 minutes on. Like, it's 15 minutes. How perfect is it going to be? And you're going to do it again
Yeah.
tomorrow. So, um, and I often have people ask me about writing and, how do you deal with the feeling when you feel like your writing's not very good? I'm like, oh, well, that's just a permanent condition. I mean, you just
Yeah.
always feel like your writing's not that good.
Yes.
Please don't wait for that to go away. Like you have a long wait if that's what you're waiting for. Um, but what I do is I will look at a piece and go, and the voice in my head is going, "This is terrible. No one cares about this. Who do you think you are?" I'm like, right, right, right. Thank you. Luckily I've been at this long enough to not believe everything I think. So I'm like, okay, great. Thank you, voice. Trying to keep me safe. Appreciate you. But then the other voice says, do I know how to make this better right now? Do I know how to make this paragraph better, this page better right now? And again, and then I wait for a second and don't rush to judgment on it. Just do I know how to make this better right now? Because sometimes the answer is, oh, yes, I do. I can take out these extra words. I can find all the sentences that start with "it is" or "that was." Those, I can remove all the adverbs and adjectives. I can definitely take out all the exclamation points, especially in emails. No, no. If your sentence is not strong enough without an exclamation point, then your sentence is not strong enough. Take it away, right? So I can make it funny, or I can make it punchy, or I can do whatever it is I can do. Other times I'm looking at it and I go, you know what? I don't know how to make this better right now. I'm sure it needs to be made better, but I don't know how to do it right now. Therefore, I will move on, right? And that patience, I think it's one of the most important things that I've taken from Stoicism is that, yeah, that patience, that willingness to be a good parent to myself. To say like, yes, of course you are striving for excellence, and of course you want this to be as good as it can be, and we're going to give ourselves a little grace. We're going to make sure that we have a snack. We're not going to try and do this on an empty stomach or when we're already upset. Like let's involve other people. This is why God made editors, right?
So do you think that, kind of going back to our phone conversation, do you think that social media and most people on their phones because they're on social media? There's some who are reading books and stuff like that, which I've seen, but that has caused us to be less patient.
I don't know. Social media caused us to be less patient. It certainly caused us to be less patient with the possibility of boredom. We do have that, like, oh, I'm waiting for the bus for 3 seconds. I'll reach for my phone.
Yeah. But I think for me, sometimes as I've been working on, switching over to coaching and moving that direction, that when an advertisement or something that comes up or somebody's talking about, I'm a coach and I do this and I do that and I make, 50K per month and all of these things. There's that part of me which is like, I'm not making that much. And so I feel like I must be doing something wrong because I'm not there yet. And I've been working at this for the last 4 or 5 months, trying to get that. So I wonder if,
I can't wait for you to listen back to this episode in like 10 or 15 years, being like, I've been at it 4 or 5 months and I felt like I wasn't doing well enough. Because really, you're barely you barely started and you're doing incredibly well. I think most of us don't know how well we're doing while we're doing it, right? Yeah, so again, as in terms of as who we are as human beings, as human animals, we're slightly negatively programmed, right? It is more important for us to remember the one berry that made us sick than it is to remember the 99 delicious berries. This is why when you do something and 99 people tell you it's amazing and one person says one thing that's a little bit critical and that's all you hear,
yeah,
that's not a character defect. That's not low self-esteem. That's survival, right? We
yeah.
need to hear that criticism more than we need to hear the things that are generally approved of. So marketing and advertising got a hold of this really early on in the development of communities and culture to say, well, clearly there's something wrong with you. Therefore, you must buy this shampoo or drive this car or subscribe to this thing or dress this way or do this thing so that you will be less offensive to the rest of the world. And we all go, okay, because I don't want to offend the rest of the world. I want to be good. I want to be accepted. I don't want to smell or have yellow teeth or,
Yeah.
you know, be all the things that they're telling me I'm about to be. Um, And so I don't know if it's made us less patient, but it's certainly uh, amplified spotlight syndrome. This psychological phenomena where we believe that other people are really paying attention to us and how we are, and if we mess up, oh boy, they're really taking note of that. And I'm here
Yeah.
to tell you, no, most people are not noticing you at all.
Yeah. They're
And
too busy in their own heads to worry about
they're
you.
way too busy in their own heads. And if you do screw up, they're probably not noticing. And if they do notice and they take time to tell you, that's the best possible news.
Yeah.
I'm
I
always
mean,
so flattered when people write me and say, like, Sam, you misspelled this, or I don't think this was right, or I really took exception to what you said here. And I'm like, thank you. Thank you
yeah, it
so
was,
much for taking the time to write and for giving a shit. That's amazing. And you
yeah.
can
And
100% disagree with me. And I'm so grateful.
well, they also, what that tells me is that they see you as somebody who can take criticism, that you have the capacity to be able to hear something negative and be like, okay,
Absolutely. Yeah. And most often I agree. Most of them, I'm
yeah,
like, yes, I agree. That really should have been better. Yes, I would have. Yes, I noticed that too. Um,
yeah, because
and
there's nothing worse than somebody who coddles you because they don't think that you're strong enough to be able to take criticism.
right, that would be really embarrassing.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think I would hate that a lot more than I hate, and I hate being criticized. I'm very sensitive to criticism. I'm a fool for verbal praise. I love compliments. I don't like criticism, but I definitely would prefer criticism to indifference or to, yeah, to coddling, to like that
yeah,
bless your heart,
flattery.
bless your
Yeah.
heart kind of thing.
I remember the first time I heard that when Brene Brown explained "Bless Your Heart," I laughed my ass off. I was like, "Yes, thank you. That's
Yeah.
now that makes sense." Oh, bless your heart. I was like,
Oh,
"What
is
feels
that
wrong with that?" And then
right?
she explained it. I was like, "Oh, that's what's wrong with that."
It's a code.
Yeah,
It's a code.
yeah, that passive aggressiveness. Um, so I know we've talked about quite a few things on here. Is there anything that you feel like we should hit that we might have missed so far?
The whole reason I do my work is because we're going to die. Everyone has work that only they can do, songs that only they can sing, words that only they can put together, relationships that only they can have. And we do not know how long we have to do this work. I'm always um, fascinated and horrified by those stories of like plane crashes on person's house, like they are in bed asleep and a plane crashes on their house and they
Yeah,
are now dead and gone, having fallen asleep thinking, oh God, I got to remember to get eggs tomorrow. And then there is no tomorrow. Like in Chicago every year, someone is killed by a falling icicle. Like these things stay with me. I think about these things a lot. And so I just really want to encourage everyone that stop waiting for a good time, stop waiting for a good idea. There's no such thing as a good idea. There's just ideas. We don't know if they're good till later, right?
yeah,
Do that thing that lights you up. We've all seen that study over and over again of the hospice patients who say, I wish I had spent less of my life doing things that I thought would make other people happy and spent more of my life doing things that made me happy, that had satisfaction or meaning to me. So that to me is one of my other favorite parts of Stoicism, is that it makes a very big deal about like, oh, you are so totally dying.
yeah,
And you should think
yep,
about that a lot.
yeah,
And
yeah,
does this matter in the scheme of, and when you're haunting your own memorial service, what do you want people saying? Well, he really followed every rule. Well, she was incredibly well behaved. His tile grout, mwah, impeccable. No, that's not what you want them to say. You want them to say that person got every drop of juice out of that orange. That person tried, that person took enjoyed every sandwich. In the immortal words of Warren Zevon, enjoy every sandwich.
Yeah. No, that's very true. And I know a lot of people when they, contact me, well, listen, they find out about Stoicism, that's my podcast. They're like, but isn't this so, I mean, this whole thing about remember death, I mean, that's so depressing. And it's like, no, it reminds me of this cartoon that I found. And I sent it to my kids because I thought it was brilliant. And it's two frames, and they look like almost the exact same thing, except in one the expression is really sad, and it says nobody gives a shit, and they're just really upset about that. Then underneath it, it's like, wait, nobody gives a shit.
Yay!
And Memento Mori is the same way. It's like, man, we're gonna die. Hey, we're gonna die.
Yeah.
So what I do isn't that important because I could die right now. So nothing I do is that important. I'm gonna die, so nothing I do is all that important.
So I might as well do what's in front of
Yeah,
me. I might as well do something delightful. I might as well do something.
yeah,
Yeah, and I didn't get the memo that death is supposed to be depressing. First of all, it's 100% inevitable. So how could it be anything other than just what it is? Also, everyone who's been says it's great, right? Isn't that every story? People are like, I was dead for 20 minutes and it was amazing. I'm like, awesome.
yeah.
The other story I sometimes tell is like, I'm like, well, remember what it was like before you were born? I think it's probably a lot like that.
Yeah, the Stoics, I think it was Chrysippus who actually basically said that. It's like you didn't know anything before you were dead, before you were alive, so why would you be worried about after you're not? It's the same thing.
Um, there's the Bill Moyers interview with Joseph Campbell, which is just again an
Yeah.
epic piece of television to this day. And Bill Moyers asks Campbell something about, I don't know, something about heaven or what he believes heaven is or something. And I should look this up because I've been thinking about this quote, but he says something like, I think we will all just be too, what does he say? Like mesmerized by the face of God to even care. And I just love that idea of all of us and our little squabbles and our little hurts and our little peccadillos and our big peccadillos. and and then eventually we all just get to the same place and go, oh, this is lovely.
Yeah. I still don't know how I feel about death. I mean, as far as I've definitely lost my fear of it that I used to have. Hit 40 and I remember looking in the mirror one time and going, oh man, what oh, geez, I'm getting old. And it was just like for months afterwards, I kind of had this like anxiety of like, I'm gonna die. And I haven't thought about this. Oh crap. And I don't believe in God anymore. So oh crap, and I still don't know what's afterwards. I mean, the universe is a very strange place. The more I
Very
delve
strange.
into, I love watching physics videos and
Yeah.
and astrophysics and stuff like that. And it just quantum physics, all of these kind of things, and it just talking about four-dimensional, eight-dimensional structures and all this crazy stuff. And I'm like, the universe is a weird place. So I'm pretty sure there's something after we die. I just don't know what it is.
Well, and to clarify, I realized I did use the word God earlier, and you have to know I don't perceive God as a moral force. I mean, there's sort of the character of God that I make jokes about in my
Yeah.
life. I use to discuss my life. But I think it's one of the reasons why I think spending time in nature is so profoundly restorative, is because of the deep indifference of nature. Like
Mhm.
nature does not care. Doesn't care if you live, doesn't care if you die, doesn't care if you appreciate her, doesn't care if you get buried in a landslide or eaten by a mountain lion, does not care. Don't turn your back on the ocean. The ocean will eat you for lunch. I love that. I find that so relaxing. When my first book came out and I was freaking out, book launch is a freaky, freaky time. Uh, my family came. I was living in California. So what do you do when the family comes and you live in California? Whale watching. So we go out whale watching, and beautiful day on the water. Like I said, I love water. I love being on the water. That alone was good. And then sure enough, there were whales. And the minute that first whale broke the surface, I was like, oh, right. I am a speck on a speck on a speck on a speck. This planet is almost 80% water. It's not really our planet, it's theirs. And they don't even know we exist. We're like those, weird things up on the dry part.
Yeah.
And it was so relaxing and restful to me. And all of a sudden, all my worries about all the things that I should have done to prep for the launch, that should have been done yesterday, that should have been done 3 weeks ago, that should have been done 3 years ago. What were people going to say? Was it going to sell well? What if everybody liked it as much as Seth Godin liked it? Holy shit. Ah! Right? My ego was freaking out. And then I saw the whale and I was like, oh, right. It's fine. No one cares.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very calming.
Yeah, I can imagine. I got to see the whales up at Cape Cod one time when I was young. Yeah, it's an amazing experience because you're like, here are these what I think they're like 80-ton creatures or whatever they are flying out of the water. And you're just like, wow, I feel
Wow.
tiny.
Yeah. 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 They're so big. And again, so calm. And so speaking of Isaac Dennison, she has a great bit in a short story she wrote. Um, it might be called The Pearl Diver. I can't remember. But part of the story is this pearl diver who can speak to the fish. And the fish say, oh, we, the marine life, are God's chosen people. The flood was for us. Why?
Ooh,
Because fish can't fall. Marine life is always in perfect harmony with its environment.
yeah.
I was like, oh, see, you read stuff like that and you're like, okay, now I have to quit writing because that is just too good. I'll never be
Yeah.
able to write something that good.
I know. There are times when I'll I have ideas for like sci-fi books all the time, and then but then I'll see something or a show or read some kind of book, and it's so brilliantly done, and I'm just like, I could never get my mind to come up with something that good, and I feel intimidated by it, but then I'm just like, that's okay. I'm glad that somebody wrote that because I get to experience that, and that's
That's right. And
that's
find your
amazing.
genre. I remember talking about 15 minutes a day. I spent a couple of months one time trying to write a screenplay. It was actually like for a TV movie. And
Hmm.
I was working for some producers who that's what they did. And I thought, well, I could do this. Okay, it turns out, no, I can't. Like, it is not, I have no gift for plot. Character, yes. Dialogue, absolutely. Plot, no. So
Yeah.
I was like, I'm sitting there at my computer going like, so they meet in the elevator where no, sorry. In a meadow, there's no. Uh, dressed up like a clown, no. Like, like I just couldn't get it. And finally, after a couple months, I was like, okay, you know what? Good experiment, not my bag. And
Yep.
now I can just love and appreciate everybody else's screenplays. And anytime somebody says, you should write a screenplay, I can say, no, thank you.
Yeah.
I'll help you with the characters and the dialogue. I can help you with the
There you
format and
go.
structure, but you would have to come up with a story because that's not my thing.
Yeah, I actually did write a screenplay about 20 years ago. Yeah, I think yeah, I was living in Minnesota. I submitted it to Trigger Street. So,
Yeah.
and I got some positive feedback on it. It was set in Croatia or in Duluth, Minnesota and Croatia. No, I'm sorry, Vancouver, BC and Croatia. And it was basically about uh, just a family and dealing with the past of the Yugoslav war because I lived in
Mm-hmm.
Austria when that was going on. So, and
Mm-hmm.
I'd written poetry and my own poetry in there, stuff like that. And one of the compliments I got was the poetry in this is beautiful, and I was like, oh, thank you.
Thank you. I tell you, this is hilarious to me. All three of my books have poetry in them. I never asked anyone's permission. No one ever said anything about it to me. Um, like people almost never mention it, and it's just there because I think that books should have poetry. I don't know. It just seemed like that there's so much that like stuff like that where like I've succeeded because I didn't know it was supposed to be hard or because it just made sense to me. So I just did it that way. And then people are like, what? How did you think of that? How did you do that? I'm like, I don't know. It just seemed like the way it should be.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that we overcomplicate things.
Oh, well, certainly you and I do. I don't know about everybody else.
Well, we start overcomplicating it because we start going, well, it needs to have this, it needs to have that, it needs to have all of these things. And pretty soon we've added on to, and so it's like, oh, well, before I can do my business, I have to do this. And then I have to get a web
Right.
page. Then I have to get email service. Then I have to do that. And then pretty soon you're just like, it's just so much work. I don't even want to get started because that's just so much to do. Whereas if you
Right.
go, well,
Well, and
what would
this
it,
is,
what's,
yeah.
go ahead.
But this is exactly the 15-minute thing, right? Exactly. You start making that big long list, and then that feeling of being tired before you even start, that's a good sign that you are on the wrong track, right? So, what is the heart of the thing? Like, how can we test this? How can we minimum viable product? How can we just get it out into the air? Because you are a terrible judge of your own work, particularly while it is still inside of your head. And even
Yeah.
once it's out, you're still not that great of a judge of your own work. It's not your job to judge your work. It's your job to be the vessel for your work, to be the channel for your work. It's your job to have it come through you, not your job to manhandle it to pieces until it's nothing, right?
Hmm.
So,
I like that. I like that.
yeah.
Huh. I hadn't thought of kind of approaching it that way, but I think that would be useful for a lot of people if they could just recognize, put it out there. Everybody else is going to judge it, so you don't need to.
Exactly. And you may have noticed that some of the stuff you put out there that you think, oh, this is embarrassing, and everybody's going crazy cuckoo nutcakes for it. Like they love it. And then there's other stuff
Yeah.
where you're like, okay, this is really special. This is really going to kill it. This is going to be great. And like crickets, no one cares.
Yeah.
Happens all the time. I guarantee the thing that is going to be the biggest hit for you is the thing that you think, really? That? That's the thing? That's the thing. That thing with the dog? That's the thing that everybody loves? Yep. That's the thing that everybody
Yeah.
loves.
Yeah. And I've done that with some episodes where I've just been like, oh, just kind of threw it out there. Didn't think it was going to be all that big of a thing. But then people are like, oh my God, this is
Right.
brilliant. And I'm like, oh, cool. And
Cool.
then I'll work really hard on another one and then be like, yeah, okay. And like, what? This was great. And they're like, yeah, it's all right.
Yeah, it's one of the very few biomarkers I've found for high creativity is that those of us who are highly creative people, uh, it's not so much that we're more right brained or more left brained. I'm not entirely convinced that that was ever really a thing to begin with. Interesting construct, helpful
Yeah.
construct, but I don't know that it's actually a thing. But uh, highly creative people make more connections between more things more often. So uh, we'll put together unusual concepts. We'll
Hmm.
find parallels and patterns and things that other people won't necessarily. And it's beautiful. We love nuance and subtlety and gray area. Like, oh, we will get into that. And we will overcomplicate a fucking paper bag. It's ridiculous. So you need to let yourself have both. Like there are the time and place to really get granular, and and to really let your mind make all the connections. And then there's times to just get it out the door, let everybody else worry about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, very true. All right. So we've been talking here for almost 2 hours. So
Oh
probably
well,
time to jump off on this.
maybe next time they can't all be winners.
No, I think it's great. I I really enjoy our conversations because they're always so funny and meandering all over the place, which is fine because I think that um, as I'm working through and learning how to be a better interviewer, sometimes I'll write down a whole bunch of questions. Others I like to kind of keep very loose and see where they go, and trying to find my style and what works with that, and be better about asking questions, which I'm not always great at, and that's something that I'm working on. So, but what I appreciate about with you is that you're able to I just kind of can leave things and you pick up and run with it, which I think helps. Again, part of the whole creative mind, which, yeah, For me, this has been a lot of fun, and like I said, I always enjoy our conversations. So,
Well, I'm
um,
so pleased and flattered you invited me. Thank you so much, Eric.
oh yeah. So before you go, make
Yeah.
sure that you tell people where they can find you online uh, and what you're about.
Yeah. So you can find me at therealsambennett.com, and I'm on all the socials as The Real Sam Bennett. My team keeps threatening to make the fake Sam Bennett, which is going to be me just like with a scotch and a cigarette going, don't do anything. No one cares.
You should. You should set up a parody account. I think that
Yeah,
would be
exactly. That's what
fabulous.
Dark said.
Yeah. And just
You're
have it
right.
just
It's
like
probably terrible.
just all these like just it's just like a fail blog thing of just things like don't even try because this is what's gonna happen, and just
That's
have
right.
it just over the top ridiculous.
We're
I think
doomed.
that's funny.
You're 100% doomed. Yeah,
We're
you are
all
weird.
gonna die.
You are
What's that?
weird. You are
Yeah.
weird. You're super weird. Everyone's talking about it.
It's like here's your weirdo
Like,
meter. Oh, you just broke it.
that's right. That's right. Oh yeah. No, people don't like you. It's true. That would be funny. Yeah. No, so it's therealsambennett.com, on the socials at The Real Sam Bennett. And the new book is called The 15-Minute Method, The Surprisingly Simple Art of Getting It Done.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, Sam. And we're going to jump off here. So thanks again for joining me on the Stoic Coffee Break podcast. As always, be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and thanks for listening. And if you aren't following me on social media, I would appreciate if you would. You can find me on Instagram and Threads at stoic.coffee, or all of the others, including Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, TikTok. I think those are all the ones I'm on at Stoic Coffee, all one word. Thanks again for listening.